Fighting Noise, a non-noise podcast.
Welcome to the Fighting Noise podcast. Welcome to this special conversation, environmental noise, a challenge that affects nearly 1 in 3 Europeans, yet remains largely invisible. So today we're speaking with Dr. Eulalia Peris. She's environmental noise expert at the European Environment Agency in Copenhagen, Denmark. She and her team recently published her Environmental Noise Report 2025 for Europe. It's a comprehensive look at how transport noise mostly impact our health, our cities, and even our ecosystem, so impacts directly biodiversity. We'll explore how this data is collected across Europe, how policymakers act or don't act on it, and why reducing noise is not only a public health issue, but also an opportunity for innovation and smarter urban living. So let's dive in directly with Dr. Eulalia Peris.
Fighting Noise, a non-noise podcast.
Hi, Eulalia. Really nice to have you here on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Eulalia, maybe you can start that way. Can you present yourself in a few words?
So my name is Eulalia Peris. I am an environmental noise expert at the European Environment Agency. I am an acoustician. I studied acoustics at the University of Salford in UK, and I've always been very interested in this subject. I mean, it was a subject that as a teenager, I even didn't know that existed, but I got into this by doing a PhD in this subject. And it is very interesting because what I really like is that it's very interdisciplinary. It has given me the opportunity to learn a lot about other areas and other topics like psychology, health, engineering, environment. So I feel I'm always learning something new.
And what's your personal path to noise? Because you're learning acoustics, so you're learning about noise and music. And most acousticians are going into another environment like music and so on, or architecture. So what's your personal path to noise or link to noise?
Yeah, actually, this is a little bit also my past because I like music a lot. I used to play an instrument when I was a kid. And when I started working after my degree, I landed in a speakers company, and I actually wanted to study more to go into the area of room acoustics and so on. But I landed into the environmental side because there was an opportunity in this side. And I also thought that it was very interesting because I also always like urban planning and health issues. And I'm actually also very sensitive to noise.
So you have your own sensitivity.
Exactly.
We speak about noise pollution. It's a bit of the unknown pollutant in Europe or in the world, but it's covered by the environmental agencies, the EEA. Can you briefly introduce the EEA and your mission or the mission of the EEA more generally, and how your work turns this scientific data into actionable policy knowledge? So what's the EEA and what can we expect from it?
So the overall mission of the European Environment Agency is to mainly provide information about the environment for different kind of audiences, like different stakeholders that could be policymakers, but also the general public as well. And specifically, the work on noise that we do is focused on helping to implement the EU Environmental Noise Directive. And this is a directive that obliges countries to submit noise data called strategic noise maps and action plans mainly for transport sources every 5 years. So basically, countries report this data and we help them implement this legislation. And then we collect all this data that they submit to us, and we make our EU-wide analysis of this data to see how is the situation? Is it good? Is it improving? Is it not improving? And then all these different assessments that we do, we disseminate to the public, but also with policymakers at the Commission, so they can see where the trends are going to.
Our noise expert at the EEA, but how big or important is noise pollution in the full scope of the EEA?
Well, noise pollution, I think it has been an issue that has been a little bit overlooked. So it's not as well known, for example, as other issues like air pollution or climate change. And maybe this is because, when we think about air pollution, we have been exposed in the past by a lot of information telling us how bad it is. For instance, we probably imagine people like smoke and all of this. And also we have systems like when the air pollution is very bad that alarm us. For example, okay, don't go out, don't run, don't make sport because so there is a little
So
bit
there's a full
more.
ecosystem around that.
Exactly. There's more awareness as well for climate change when we see terrible events about flooding, etc. It's something that it's a little bit more present in our minds. For noise, I feel it's a little bit different. Many times when I speak with people and about noise, they think a little bit about going to a concert and being next to a speaker that it's very loud and damaging the hearing. But really what people don't realize is that being exposed to background noise levels of road, railway, things that we are used to hear in our neighborhoods every day,
Yeah, and to
this can
ignore.
cause very serious health effects as well, like cardiovascular effects, metabolic effects, etc.
We'll speak about it. But I know that I think I mentioned that a lot in the show, but your report said it again. We speak about over 112 million Europeans being exposed to harmful transport noise. One European of three, I said in the introduction, is harmed by noise. And I even read over still 100 million of Europeans on a daily basis in cities, European cities. So it concerns everyone. Why is it so ignored, even if it's concerned anyone? And when we speak to the EEA, but at the same time, if we look at the information of the WHO, the World Health Organization, there is a gap in the observation of these figures. So first of all, are people aware that we speak about one of three? And second question, let's deep dive, but we make it after the deep dive on the decibel. We will speak about when do we think it really harms people, and if we compare WHO and EEA. So first of all, why 500 millions of Europeans are exposed and harmed, and no one cares?
Yes, that's a very good question. I think one of the reasons is because we speak a bit less about noise. Somehow noise it's perceived also a little bit subjective. So sometimes I speak with people and they tell me, I live close to a road, but it doesn't bother me. But I always say it doesn't bother you consciously, but
it hurts you.
unconsciously, probably your sleep is deprived because you're not realizing it, but basically our auditory system, it's always on in case we need to be alert of something. So being exposed to a constant background of noise from roads, planes, trains, makes our body be in a constant state of activation. And this constant state of activation can lead to harmful physiological responses such as inflammation and oxidative stress. So yeah, even if you don't realize it, it's causing harm to your body.
Let's speak about the thresholds.
Yes.
Because what I see for many months and years, I follow this topic. The question of threshold is really important but I feel like I don't understand how it's decided. The threshold about a sound or noise being harmful is mostly 55 decibel. At the same time, a lot of scientific data or experts speak about 45 decibel. It's already harming, and you said it. You mentioned it. If you live near a road and we speak differently about night decibel and day decibel, or the way you perceive it. So what's the real limit, and what do you have in your report? How do you manage this different threshold if we speak about scientific studies or the WHO recommendation?
Yeah. So, yeah, very good question about the thresholds. I mean, the thresholds that are set up in the current EU legislation are very old because the legislation is from 2002. Basically, when these thresholds were set, they were based on some guidelines that from the WHO that are very old, that they were called WHO guidelines from community noise, that I think they were from 1999 or something like this. And really, basically, these thresholds were set based on annoyance and sleep disturbance, because at that time there was not a lot of studies really looking into these cardiovascular effects, etc. So really nowadays there is a much larger base of evidence linking residential exposure to noise pollution from transport noise. So there is no magic threshold because different studies have found different things, but many studies really have found that the risks are linear. It means really it increases with level, and it means that there is no really a threshold of effect where the negative impacts start. So basically means the impacts start at very low levels. And definitely the thresholds of the directive are too high for what we know currently, and and even the thresholds from WHO that they published in 2018, some of them, for example, for road traffic noise, they can be even a bit too high because there is new evidence showing that negative impacts start below these thresholds. So, yeah.
So according to your report, do you think the threshold or having a specific threshold is the right way to do it and to do policy? Because the question with that is how precise is this threshold? Because you give a lot of data in the report. You mention it. A lot of policies, a lot of rules of law are based on studies from 30 years ago or something like that. So we didn't look at the way. So is a decibel threshold the right way to do it, in your opinion, in your observation? Or do we need to import new way of seeing that?
Well, I mean, regarding to thresholds, there are two things. I think, it's good to have a threshold where we can say, for instance, nobody or it's not recommended to be exposed above this threshold. So I think this is a kind of a good way for me to really know, okay, what we should aim. We need some sort of level for saying, okay, people are protected or are not protected. So I think this is a good way. However, I mean, the thresholds we have at the EU legislation at the moment, they're not really thresholds to protect people or to, let's say, they are not enforceable limits. So you don't need to do anything if you have people exposed above these thresholds set there at the directive. They are just reporting thresholds, which means countries need to evaluate how many people are exposed above these thresholds. So it's a little bit because with other legislations, for example, for air quality legislation, there are really thresholds that are limits that where you have a penalty if you go above this threshold, etc. So yeah, in terms of legislation, we are still a little bit behind other environmental laws.
And at the same time, you report your very precise data. I mentioned it. For instance, you mentioned 1.3 million healthy life years. To make it understandable, we lose living years. The humanity lose living years. 1.3 million every year. We lose like 1.3 million human being living or lived years because of noise. And you gather, I think, you gather data from 39 countries. That's right in the report, European
30
countries. 31 from 31 countries. So what enabled this level of precision, which is fantastic, and at the same time, how can we be sure that the precision is the same in all the 31 countries?
So yes, we estimate that in Europe there are about 66,000 premature deaths that can be attributable to residential exposure to noise pollution from rail and aircraft. And as you said, we estimate as well that 1.3 millions of healthy life years are lost annually. This measure is a measure that combines morbidity and mortality, so meaning that healthy years of life are lost.
Even if you live but with a cancer, it's morbidity. You live with a strong disease, and it's part of this. That's right.
Exactly. And these numbers are what we can quantify based on the noise data that we receive in terms of the number of people exposed to noise from road, rail, and aircraft, and also the relationships we have from epidemiological studies linking noise exposure and health impacts. Of course, these are not, I want to say, not precise numbers like these numbers are an order of magnitude that more or less with the data we have on noise, we could attribute more or less this number of deaths, so this number of cardiovascular disease cases, etc.
What's this data you collected? Is it open data? Is it a data available for innovators, for startups willing to provide new solutions?
Yes, the data that it's submitted under the directive, it's public data, and we have a repository with all this data. However, some of the sub-analysis that we do, this is not published, but the root of the data, the raw data, it's available to everybody.
Okay. And it's available to everybody. When you look at what innovation is able for, and the data you use, I think, is from 2022. Since 2022, 2023, there is in innovation a very big wave with AI and the abilities of AI. So more and more companies are able to manage data in a way different way. We are able to manage real-time data as well. Is there any ambition, and at the same time, do you think it's possible to plan that countries are providing real-time data or way more often data than every 5 years you mentioned to be able to take strong decision? Because we look, and you mentioned that there is this environmental noise directive saying Europe has to reduce to zero or by 30% the level of noise above 55 decibel. Tell me if I'm wrong. And we reached 3% more or less in like what like
5 years,
8 years, 5 years, and so I think the optimistic or the optimists from fighting for that say we will reach maybe 20% decrease instead of 30. We are at 3. In all the projects I managed in my past, when you are at 3% after 5 years, I mean, if we reach 10% reduction, it will be already great. So that's not the right path. So we need to change the methodology. Do you think we can do more? Because at the same time, I see a lot of innovation doing real-time stuff, managing a lot of many levels of data, and at the same time, countries have to provide every 5 years data, and many people around me, and me included, to be honest, we feel like people don't care. So if countries don't care, provide data every 5 years, how can we reach that goal? Do you understand my question? And are you still optimistic that we can reach that goal or even change the methodology?
Well, yes. As you said, yes, we have this, or the Commission published this ambition under the Zero Pollution Action Plan. That ambition would be to reduce, or they want to reduce 30% of the number of people chronically disturbed by noise by 2030, compared with 2017. This is an ambition, meaning an ambition is not legally binding, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
no penalty.
Exactly. So it's an ambition. What we see with our data is that, as you said, the number of people exposed to noise have not really decreased much. Like we estimate around 3%. So of course, if we want to reach this, we need to do much more. The question is, what we see with our European data is that, yes, countries are doing things, but they are more like in terms of, let's say, hotspots. So they have a big problem in a specific place and they do something. But of course, this is not a lot when we look at European data altogether. So really what we need is a EU-wide application of measures. And I would say generally these kind of measures that tackle large areas in a territory are measures that tackle noise at the source. For instance, let's say, would be limits on engine noise, tire noise, maybe also reduction of speed limits, reduction of traffic, and also even setting obligations to act upon some critical levels. But really, these are to ensure the benefit, we need wide application of these measures. I mean, for instance, I put you an example. If there are 20 kilometers of low noise asphalt, this is not going to make a big difference at European level. So really these measures, let's say at source, that are very good measures, really to be able to show a benefit at the European level, they probably need to be supported by national or EU policies, probably are binding. And yeah, I mean, we have examples of things like this that worked before. For example, when we see what's happened with emissions of main air pollutants, so we see that thanks to solid EU legislation setting clear limits and emission standards, we've seen a clear downward trend. So yeah, maybe the same approach also could help reduce noise pollution.
So let's summarize. We see that 1 European of 3, 100 million, over 100 million Europeans, 150 million of Europeans are harmed by noise. So it's used the social cost of noise. Let's speak about the social cost, because you mentioned in your report, I think 94 billions of per year of social costs within Europe. I need to understand the figures. If you look at the figures in France only, from the ADEME, they speak about 146, and it's an old study, so over 150 billions per year for the cost of noise. What's the difference? Is it the difference between social costs, including mobility, as you said, and mortality, and for the ADEME, including performance costs, or lack of performance, or what's the difference between all these figures?
So, yeah. I can explain you how we calculate our figures. And again, this is a rough estimation of what could be the cost in the EU of noise pollution. And we calculate this with what I explained, the mortality and the morbidity. So basically, our estimate only accounts for these, let's say, health impacts. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not
the
sure
sources
how.
of noise are mostly transport noise in your calculation.
Yes, road, rail, and aircraft, basically these three.
So transport noise does cost Europe 100 billions annually, approximately, compared to the social and performance costs only in France, 150 billions. I used to transpose it for Europe and say that 1,000 billion of cost if you take all sources of noise. And even if you take only the 10% you mentioned, so transport noise for mobility and mortality, 100 billions per year, 94. You say in your report as well that every euro invested brings 10 euro in social benefits directly, which interventions offer the best cost benefit today? I mean, why policymakers don't take it as granted that every euro invested will be profitable and make the point. And how did you calculate that? And why do you think it will impact the way decision makers react?
Yes, you're right. In the report, we say that every euro invested brings 10 euros in social benefits. This is not a number that we have calculated at the agency. This is a number that has been provided by the European Commission, by some studies that they have conducted. And basically, what I understand of this number is that they have calculated what are the benefits of countries that have implemented certain measures. Which interventions offer the best cost benefit? So, as I said before, measures that tackle noise at the source generally are the ones that provide the best cost benefit if they are applied widely, because everybody benefits from those measures. For example, if you think about, let's say, noise barriers, this is not really a measure that offers a lot of cost benefit because, first of all, it's expensive and you can only tackle also certain zones. I mean, imagine you would not put noise barriers all around a city, right? So
Yeah, totally. You take the black spot, the biggest
exactly.
spot, I
So
think. Yeah.
it's not so really what can bring a benefit. It's something that can have a benefit on almost everybody. And for instance, I don't know, I mentioned quieter roads like the low noise asphalt, quieter tires, lower vehicles, sound limits, and also if those are accompanied by necessary regulatory changes. Because, for example, let me put you an example. We have there are tires that are more noisy and tires that are more quiet. So we don't have any legislation saying you need to use quieter
Better
tires or not.
tires and yeah.
We just have something that, okay, when you buy a tire, you can see if this tire is, noisier or not. We have a kind of like a grading thing.
Yeah.
But this is, of course, this is not mandatory. So this is what I mean, that if it's not widely used, this measure then doesn't bring a lot of benefit to people.
So you already mentioned that without penalty, without
Exactly.
money winning measures, it's really difficult. I like to, for the listeners, I like to pose the equation a little bit. So 1 European out of 3 is harmed by noise. Social cost is huge. The investment could be interesting, but as you say, because there is no penalty, you need a certain level of motivation to look for that and for that kind of investment. You speak only about transport noise. So you get all this data from 31 countries in Europe that are every 5 years and already like that, not taking in consideration many noise sources and so on. We see the huge impact of noise. So you have this data, get it right. The EEA has a goal to put this report available for all the policymakers. So now let's deep dive into what policymakers are doing with that. You published a report on the 24th of June, I
In
think,
June,
this
yeah.
year. We record this mid of November. Did you see any impact already of this report?
This is a very
First
good
question.
question. I mean, I know that this report, I've been invited to present it in certain expert groups at the European Commission. I know that they are, I mean, looking into the numbers and perhaps thinking a little bit what could be done. The Commission has launched a study on, let's say, actions that can be done at local level and at national level. This is what is going on. Generally, I have to say these things, like, for example, if we would be thinking about changing the directive or reopening, and these are very long processes, so it cannot happen with few months. So let's see what happens. For other things, let's say, let me put you an example of other things that have had an impact in the past. For instance, in 2018, the WHO published the environmental noise guidelines, and what the Commission did, it's incorporate in an annex of the directive the, let's say, they made mandatory that countries and competent authorities need to evaluate the health impacts of their actions when they produce an action plan. So this was something that, okay, was published by the WHO and then had a policy impact. For the report of the EEA, we are waiting to see what is going to happen with this.
Okay, so it's too early. What's your ambition? How do policymakers use this report to really have impact? In which frame? Because you said that it won't be binding. You can't change the END. It sounds easy, but it's a huge political act, and it's a huge effort to do that at European level. So I can understand why you can't change the END as fast as you wish you could do. Maybe in 2030 we could vote something else for the future and be a bit more ambitious or aggressive. I don't know. How do they use that? They take the reports, they invite you to present the results at European level. So what is happening behind? In a country like you're from Spain, like Spain, like France, like Germany, like Denmark, when you're sitting. How do they act if it's not binning, money binning, as you say?
Well, I mean, the work of the European Commission is to ensure that the legislation is followed. And actually, I mean, we've been speaking a lot about if the thresholds are good or bad, that more actions need to be done. However, still, apart from this, we are still implementing the directive because many countries are late in delivering data. So what the Commission has been doing is a little bit checking which countries need to do more, need to improve what they report. This is a little bit what's happening behind. But of course, the things like that are not binding, this is
Limited.
I cannot reply to this because I'm not really the European Commission. So I don't know exactly in which direction they want to move. We were speaking about, for me, my ambition or what I see is that we need a long-term plan, right? We have this directive that obliges countries to report data, but really we need a long-term plan that tells us what we want to achieve, but not also what we want to achieve, 30%, 20%, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, how we want to achieve it. Because sometimes I feel like competent authorities like a city or a country are a bit lost because there are a lot of different measures that you can do. I mean, there is no one measure that is going to bring all the benefits. We need a combination of measures. This has been shown by many studies. So I think, yeah, countries and authorities are a little bit lost on, okay, how we can achieve this. So really we need a long-term plan. We need also maybe some interim targets that tell us how that points us towards a direction to achieve this reduction. And also for me it's very important to raise awareness first, like we were discussing in the beginning, public awareness that noise harms health with citizens, but also with policy makers, because as we said, the noise problem has not really been given as much attention as other environmental issues. So I hope, like with the report that we publish, at least these 2 points can be a little bit picked up and at least thought a bit more. And also, one more thing is that I think we have different legislations. Like one legislation tackles noise, one legislation tackles air pollution, one legislation tackles nature restoration.
Yeah, biodiversity and so on. Yeah.
But I think we should do a little bit more together on mitigation, because tackling
Yep.
pollutants together can maximize some synergies and can be maybe more cost effective. So this is maybe an area also that we should think about, how to tackle different pollutants together. So not doing mitigation measures maybe really separately, and then one is making another problem worse, or trying to put forces,
I
bring forces together.
I understand, and I mean, we speak about the same budget for a city, for a country is at the same budget at the end, so they need to prioritize budgets, and I understand your point. At the same time, in many discussions, I see a lot of people hiding themselves behind a air pollution measure, saying, yeah, it will impact positively noise. Like we have a lot of electric vehicles, so we push for that, and it will impact positively noise pollution as well, which is almost wrong, because we see that the noise is emitting by the contact between the wheels and road, not from the motor, which is already limited by law for many decades now, meaning there is kind of no impact on noise pollution, and still they are hiding themselves. So I understand the budget side of common mitigation, and I'm with that. I'm with you on that point. And the same way, we need to find a way that people don't hide
Yeah,
themselves behind other measures, because noise has to live as one real pollutant and not
yeah.
just only the side effect. I give you an anecdote from a discussion I had in official discussion with a tramway producer, manufacturer. And I asked them, many people told me about noise coming from tramway, not in the cities, because inhabitants and it's noisy and they can't sleep, or they're suffering from it, or they're working close to that, or just walking on the street and suddenly it's breaking and it's and I asked him, why can't you do anything against that? Because I mean, in terms of innovation, producing a tram, which is emitting a lower noise should be doable. No, it's completely, we can do that. Okay, why is it still so noisy? And I make the discussion short. He told me, the limits of noise are measured on a straight road. So the tramway is measured on 100 meters of straight road, and it's not noisy in that way. But when the curve is arriving, when you
Yeah.
turn around to the right, suddenly the contact is bigger, and it's becoming a bit more noisy, and the brakes are felt really differently. It's a higher range of noise, meaning at the end you are suffering from it. But it's not controlled by law. It's controlled only in straight ways. So he told me, we have solutions, but it's costly, because new innovation, new solution. Cities are not willing to spend more money on something not mandatory. So when you say, I hear you say, we are speaking with countries and cities, understanding the impact of noise. I mean, what I don't understand is all they do laws because they done that. And you know that as an acoustician, but most non-acoustician, even architects not being acoustic expert, don't know about this. So the rules are kind of wrong.
Yes.
What do you think about that? Do you
Yes.
agree? Did you hear about that story about
Yeah.
the wrong law for
I mean, it's the
tram,
same.
train, or anything else?
It's the same. It's like what we were. It comes back to what we were talking about, regulations and regulations at the source. And yeah, if if this part is not right, then the rest is not going to be right. It's the same for cars. Cars need to, the emissions, the noise emissions of the car need to be tested. It's in a controlled environment because, but as you said, so it's the same for cars. When you go around, the acceleration, it's different. So it doesn't reflect really the real situation that we have, and therefore, like you say, perhaps the regulations on noise limits are not really, or these tests, let's say, are not really adequate for protecting people on noise and for really showing what is the real situation when you have like a car in a road or a tram in a rail, etc. So yes, I agree.
Eulalia, let's be positive, because when we speak about that, and I mean, you provide a lot of data. You did a major work with that report. Thank you for that, for creating awareness. As that's what I try to do with that podcast too. So thanks a lot for that effort. And even if the discussion is a bit frustrating, I think for listeners too, and so on. I mean, there is a lot of people like you doing a lot of efforts to change things. So let's now be a bit positive to end that interview with a good note. What can innovators, city, private investors as well? I spoke about with real estate investors telling me things don't change for decades in terms of noise pollution for real estate. So, what can innovators, startup founders, and so on do to accelerate progress? Maybe on a private side, because you said cities and countries a bit low to react. So what can private companies, startup founders, innovators do to make progress and to get the opportunity to reduce noise pollution and the impact on biodiversity, the impact on human health, physical health, mental health, on children, and so on? What can we do in the private sphere?
I mean, technological innovation, it's one of the pillars, let's say, to move towards noise reduction. So anything that really moves us in this direction, let's say in making roads that are quieter, tires that are quieter, engines that are quieter, etc. This, it's, as we've discussed, this brings benefits to the society. The problem is that sometimes technological innovation, as we were speaking, it's mainly driven when there are some regulations, laws, some binding, because then it's like pushing to innovate. So I think, these two things kind of need to be accompanied together. Of course, companies working on this and technological innovation, it's something we need to tackle the noise problem, because as I said, you explained, there are so many people affected by noise pollution that can pose a risk to health, that the problem is really large, and really this can bring, tackling noise pollution can bring benefits to the society.
What can listeners do for you to help you in your mission?
Be more aware that noise pollution, it's it's harmful to health. Try to, I mean, at individual level, I think anything really that it's related to, let's say, car use, like reduce car use and try to use more active modes of transport like cycling, walking. This is something that can help reducing noise pollution. Also, things like driving behaviors, speeding, it's really bad for noise, accelerating, especially during the night when people are sleeping. This is also something that bring, let's say, a better sound environment in our cities. So this could be, few ideas for helping fight noise pollution.
But individual ideas, and like for in many debate, like for climate change and so on, you only have the people doing some effort and seeing that the other one are not. So there is a lot of frustration behind. It was the conclusion or the last question, but listening to that, I ask myself, are cities, if a city is not aware of the problem, how can I make sure that they see you report, your EEA report? Because all documentation, all scientific studies you have, you kind of summarize in this 2025 report. People being aware of this will read this report, and like me, I mean, you publish the report, I got a notification directly and read the report, but I'm already convinced. So it's and the issue here, I mean, most of listeners of this podcast are already convinced. So how can we make sure that cities where people don't care about that because they are not aware of this issue read the EEA report and are informed? Can we do something? Can citizens and companies write to the cities and countries and say, hey, there is this new report from the EEA and you should read that and make something very concrete about X issues? Can they complain? Do you have a view at European level of the complaints of the population or companies to that issue of noise?
Yeah, I mean, our report is public and can be shared with everybody that needs it. We've done kind of a lot of work in trying to disseminate the results of the report and among countries. We have, as you said, the network of countries that we work with, and we ask them also to disseminate within their country. We are also in touch with network of cities, like, for example, Eurocities. And we also disseminated the report within these networks. We disseminate the report with NGOs and etc. In terms of citizens, it's always a little bit more difficult to connect with them because the information of our reports, it's somehow a little bit more technical. We have platforms like you that maybe can help us
Hopefully.
disseminate a little bit more about the report, but also we use traditional channels like newspapers and so on. So yes, this would be the main ideas for dissemination.
And what's the next steps now the report is published? You travel around Europe to make people aware of this report. Is there a new report coming or data aggregation in any way? Do you plan any other report? Because we speak about transport noise mostly in this report, but you have the noise of construction site, industrial noise. We speak about biodiversity, industrial noise for and anthropic noise for oceans and for species in ocean it's a huge issue as well. So what are the next steps?
Yeah.
At EEA
So
level?
yeah, from my side, and there are colleagues that work maybe on more what you said, like let's say impacts on marine biodiversity, etc. So they are probably going to look a little bit more on marine noise. From my side, we are planning a report or a briefing on action plans. So we are currently analyzing all the actions that countries said that they are going to do for tackling noise pollution. So yeah, they have reported the strategic noise maps of 2022. We produced the report saying what's the situation. So they are at country level looking at what is the situation at country level and at local level, and then proposing some actions that they plan to do. It's not sure that they are going to do it or not because of what we are saying. They are not obliged to act, but at least they write it down what they plan to do. So we are going to analyze this data and produce a report or a briefing based on this. And also for next year, we are planning a briefing on noise and health in vulnerable groups, because we are starting to see more and more that although healthy people can be affected by noise. Some specific groups of the population, like for instance, people with pre-existing health conditions, they can be more affected by noise. So this is a little bit what's on the pipeline at the moment.
In the pipeline. Okay. Eulalia Peris, Dr. Eulalia Peris, you are the environmental noise expert at the EEA, the European Environment Agency in Copenhagen, in Denmark. Thanks a lot for your time today. I know it's a difficult exercise because you're not responsible for the noise pollution you report of your report. So there are a lot of questions, a lot of frustrations I give you from the listeners, from all the people around me speaking about that. And at the same time, you're one of the only ones ready to fight against it, doing your job. So thanks, many thanks for your time today, but many thanks for your work. Keep fighting against noise and for creating awareness for that topic. Can people contact you if they have questions or contact the EEA? Is there any
Sure.
office hours for private companies or citizens?
Yes, we have a public inquiry service, and anybody can really reach us at any time.
That's okay. We'll put the contact in the description of the episode if you want, so that people can
Yes.
directly reach out if there's anything. Many thanks for your time, Eulalia, today, and I wish you well.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the invitation.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.